All right. Hey, guys. It's time for us to get back into the Rubblebelt. We're going to create some hexcrawl systems for Ravnica, Magic the Gathering 5-color mana system. So that we have lands that correspond with color types. When you're on a hexcrawl, you crawl through a swamp, you're dealing with black magic. Crawling through a plains, you're dealing with white magic. Crawling through a forest, you're dealing with green magic, et al. So hey, I'm going to make sure my signal's coming through so you can hear me. We'll go through my intro here real quick, and then we'll do some launch dev. So let's see, mic check, 1, 2, 3. So let's see, mic check. Yeah, seems like I'm coming through okay. Let's go ahead and grab this. I'm going to do I'm going to bounce my signal across the social networks and internet, and while I do that, I'm going to turn down my microphone here a little bit because apparently I'm coming through. If I mute the channel, I negate myself, so I don't want to do that, but I want to stay active here as well. So I'm just going to post on the Reddits and the Twitter and the Discard. And so give me a hot second here to punch all these signals, and we'll make things come through. So let me go through my intro here real quick to distract you from me. Hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games. I illustrate them. I publish them online. I've been playing D&D since 1986. I've been developing content for 5th edition on the DMsGuild since 2017. When the first Magic the Gathering setting, Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, was released on DMsGuild, on Dungeons and Dragons by Wizards of the Coast. That was, hey Hornetica, it's good to see you. I expected to see some sort of a color mana system, Magic the Gathering owned by Wizards of the Coast. D&D owned by Wizards of the Coast. It seems like chocolate and peanut butter to me that you would replace the 8 schools of magic and spell slots with the 5 colors of magic with a mana system. But we have learned over time that when Wizards has big ideas, they distill them down to work with mechanics that already work in books they've made, so that you don't have to have splat sprawl. I respect that. Like you should be able to use anything you have with the core rule books. That's cool. I respect that. But there was also a really big letdown that there was no color mana system to use in Magic the Gathering. So hold my beer. And we went about and we created the color mana system for Dungeons and Dragons. So let me go ahead and scoot my screen aside. And let's see, I just posted to the Ravnica DMs Reddit. Great community. Privet's Guide came out of this community, and that's a good piece that's on the DMsGuild. You can follow me on Twitter, the Twitter platform, @PhilKearney. Hey, that's me. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications when I'm live in the future, which is frequently. The full playlist for the Martial Powers development system here, all 124 episodes, is in this full playlist here. Right now what we're doing is, here's the full mechanics that we have that you can access through my Patreon, which is linked down below as well. This is like 120 pages now? Where are we at? 115. This is a full mana system for we already have, well, if you don't know, we already have the color magic system on DMsGuild. Here, we already have a bunch of books for converting spellcasting, the 8 schools of magic and spell slots into the color mana system, so that you can have like a Boros character flinging white and red mana while casting spells. That's great for spellcasters, but it's not the full picture. That's only half of the equation. The rest of the equation is martial powers. It's a system neutral, generic key spell point type system that allows all the martial type characters in the Dungeons and Dragons system, barbarians, fighters, monks, rogues, paladins, rangers, as well as rules for artificers and warlocks to convert to a color mana system and then use that mana to spend on different, like if you're familiar with 3rd edition or 4th edition, they had martial powers, which are like non-spells that martial type characters could use to give them more punch and more options and versatility. So we have about 150 different powers that are in this book that range from 0 to 5 mana that you can spend as a half caster. And so we've been building this out for 100 and some odd episodes. Now we're at the point as a DM, I am building out a toolkit. Oh yeah, there's 209 powers total. 151 of them spend mana, and a good 40 of them are like cantrip-like effects, kind of like weapon masteries. But once you learn them, they can use them with anything. Like if you want to push something, you don't have to use a heavy crossbow. You can just hit them, punch them in the face if you want. And if you have the push mastery, then whenever you hit something in combat, you can push them 5 feet, and there you go. Because it's a cantrip, it requires a saving throw, but there's also like Thundering Strike is like a smite-like effect that doesn't allow a saving throw and deals extra damage. So the more mana you spend, the further you can punt them, and the more damage they take when they get punted. So this book is full of not only on-hit effects, reactions. There's also exploits that boost up different ability checks and saving throws anytime you throw a d20, basically. As well as modifies like movement and other action economy that your character would have. You can use an exploit to modify it. And then there's also auras and sustained effects, kind of like concentration spells that boost yourself. And then you have all the meta powers and stuff that go into that as well, which we've spent literally hundreds of episodes exploring. But now that all that stuff is built, it's time to playtest it. I've been playtesting it at the high-end tier with my own home table from level 16 to 20, and it works great. But we need to test at the low levels to make sure that it works well at all tiers of play. So we are currently building a game environment for us to be able to basically throw characters around and sling mana at monsters and challenges. So we're building a Rubblebelt hexcrawl campaign toolkit using the Spirit of Magic the Gathering. If each of these squares is 10 miles and this like 3x3 space is a 30-mile block, characters can do 30 miles in a day with effort. So you take a 9-hour rest, you can then move 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours. You take a long rest next day, 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours. So you can traverse a full region in one day, and each region is dedicated to a specific land color. And then inside of each region, there are separate tiles that have their own color devotion. So like while inside this red tile, you can be inside of a black landscape or a red landscape instead of a red tile inside of a red region. That's mountains, black swamps, white plains, green forests, blue islands. Those are the basic 5 land types in Magic the Gathering to correspond with the 5 colors of white, blue, black, red, and green. And then again, if we're talking about martial powers here, let's go take another quick look here at the revised color mana spell list. If we crack this open, you can see that all of the spells are devoted to white, blue, black, red, green. Like Disguise Self is an illusion spell. That's generally blue stuff. But Dissonant Whispers is like mind-bending magic. So it's white, it's blue and black magic. Entangle, Ensnaring Strike. These are green spells. Featherfall is blue or green. So we have all the we have all the spells from all the books divided into the individual colors that correspond with the mana pool that your character carries. So if I want to play a Boros Paladin, I'm going to be packing white and red mana that I can use to spend on various powers that I've picked up in addition to the spells that I have as a Paladin that I can now run around inside of the Rubblebelt. And if I'm in white or red terrain, then I'm going to have advantages that, say, a Golgari character that would be dedicated to green and black would have different advantages. So during the playtest, we're encouraging people to choose different guilds so there's a wide array of magic that's available. While you're in a land tile devoted to your guild's color, you can use mana for anything. So while a Boros Paladin is in a white or red territory, like either in the region or a tile, I can use my mana for anything. It's like white mana in a white tile can be used for, it's universal. Red in this entire region or in these individual tiles, red mana is universal. So it's like your character doesn't have to worry about what color their mana is. They can just do anything they want with it. It becomes just universal points. So as the team moves from tile to tile, it's advantageous to have a group with a wide array of abilities. It gives some characters advantages over other characters. So sometimes characters are shining in spotlight versus others. So these are some of the ideas that we're throwing around for this particular playtest toolkit to lean into both. And there's, we also have the elemental paradigm of air, earth, fire, and water. After we finish doing the color stuff for a while, maybe we'll make an airbender campaign and have the 4 elements define the magic paradigm that we use for martial powers instead. But for now, the reason we're here today is to get into the, let's go down here. Let's just grab this one and go down to the bottom of our playtest. So we've already spent time digging through different magic cards to find different types of enchantments that exist in the game that will create trigger effects while you're inside that tile. Like for example, white is like if we were to be in this tile here, and this white, like in this region is red. If we're in this white tile specifically, if we were to roll randomly for things in that tile, let's go back up here. Each area has 2 challenges, so we'll roll a d6 twice. And if a d6 came up, if we rolled a 3, we would have an enchantment which requires mana to resolve. If I'm in a white tile, I'm then going to go down here to look at the enchantments by color. White, I'd roll a d6, say I rolled a 4. Privileged position. So while the enchantment is active, we can't target creatures with spells or powers. We can do AoE effects. We can cast spells and channel powers that affect ourselves, but we can't directly target creatures with powers or spells. So like Magic Missile, you can't use Magic Missile against creatures while the privileged position is active. But each enchantment is created by some sort of rogue magical effect or artifact that exists inside the tile. So when we roll up an enchantment as one of the random effects, we know that there's some sort of magical effect or artifact that the team can go in as a challenge to disable. And once they disable it, then they can attack creatures. So if I were to roll up this tile and the 2 challenges that we got were monsters and enchantments, then now I'm going to be dealing with creatures that I can't directly target with spells or power effects. I'm going to have to attack them physically or hit them with AoE or find some other way to defeat them, but I can't directly target them with spell power. So neat little weirdnesses that'll botch up how people run and play on their stuff. So hold on real quick. I think I bounced myself to the front of the dock. Let's go back down. So we got a whole bunch of them. We got 6 for each color type. So as the team goes from tile to tile, we can just randomly roll up what challenges they're going to face while they're traversing that square. And the tempo is 24-hour day, 9-hour long rest. I know, 9 hours, it's weird. 9-hour long rest. And then 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours. That makes up your 24-hour day. So you can't. The thing is that you have a caravan of non-combat character and NPCs that you are escorting through this wasteland to safety. So your job as characters is to scout ahead, choose which, like if we start here, you can choose any of these 3 tiles in these 3 different, like this is a white region, this is a blue region, and this is a red region. So when the team comes to the table with their character, they can decide between themselves, which region do we want to explore, which tile specifically do we want to start in. Like maybe you guys have some Azorius and Demir characters. Both are blue bending. So let's go into this central tile, this central region here, and now we have an elevated blue tile, we have a level ground red tile, and we have a level ground plains tile. Elevated and sunken tiles are difficult terrain unless you have a ranger that has natural explorer aligned or attuned to the color of land. So if you have a ranger, like if you have a Golgari ranger on your team who's devoted to black and green magic, then they may have their natural proficient, their natural mastery. I forget what it's called. Anyway, natural explorer might be green. So they might you might want to think about, well, we have black here, but today our ranger's attuned to green. So we don't have any green tiles off the cuff here that we'll get access to. But if that ranger was, say, attuned to a blue tile, so then traversing the blue tile, even though it's on elevated buildings and like skyways and toppled skyscrapers and stuff, it won't be difficult terrain while you're with that ranger, because the ranger has natural explorer for blue terrain. That makes it sound like rangers have an unnatural advantage over anyone else in the game, but all it's doing is removing the disadvantage. If it's difficult terrain, it takes 10 hours to move through difficult terrain as opposed to 5 hours through level terrain. So, and once your characters get access to higher level magic, then you'll also be able to traverse ground more quickly. But that's basically the gist of it. You move into a tile. You've got it's basically a 5-hour block that your characters will resolve that tile. At the end of that tile, you take a short rest, and then you move to the next tile. Your caravan advances to the tile that you took control of. It's now a secure area. Time to pick your next tile. I could pick one of these. If I'm in this tile, I could pick any of these 5 tiles to next move into. But the goal of the game is to march westward, because it's a west march campaign. So presumably you'd, like, say, move from this elevated blue tile into this flatland swamp. So we now go into the swamp. We'll have a check to see what type of hazards and threats are inside of that swamp tile. Let's say we rolled up an enchantment, and we're looking at a black enchantments. Let's say we rolled 5 bad moon. Monsters add 1 power die to attack rolls. So anytime a creature attacks you, whatever their CR determines what rank of power they are, and the rank determines the power die, either a D4, D6, D8, or D10, D12 for creatures anywhere from like 1/8 CR to 14 plus. That's the 5 ranks that characters can acquire, or creatures can acquire. So like if a goblin with a half CR, if you run across a bunch of goblins in the swamp while the bad moon is risen, then they're going to roll a D4 and add that to their attack rolls. As opposed to, like, say, if you fall into like a sunken realm of a beholder, that's a CR4 creature. So it's going to add a D10 to every attack roll it makes, including its Ice Stalk raise. So, I mean, that's super bad news for the team. So, but these are until you find a way to break the enchantment that the bad moon has over this swamp area. Once you defeat the bad moon, that bonus goes away, and all the creatures become more normal-like, and they get easier to defeat. So it kind of has like a Path of Exile mapping in-game sort of feeling to it, or like Diablo 4 or whatever. That like the random circumstances are going to make each tile different, and the goal is to be able to traverse one tile during a short rest. So there's basically 2 or 3 challenges, which means you could have like if I rolled double monster, maybe it'd be like it could be like say orcs and lizardmen. Well, there's tribes of orcs and lizardmen in this 10 mile tile that might be at war with each other, but definitely don't like you being there. So maybe you could use diplomacy or negotiations or intimidation to win over the lizards, so that they'll fight with you to defeat the orcs, and then you can trade with the lizards so they leave you alone. That would count as a victory. And now you could potentially go back to those lizards as allies to help teach you things. Like, hey, we found some weirdness in this red region over here. What can you tell us about this artifact? And they might have some information about it on their own scouting. So it's a hex crawl where there's no set goals or overarching plot line other than get your caravan through the hex through the Rubblebelt safely. But all of the gameplay, role-playing, challenges and successes, and the culture that gets built inside of the game world is strictly going to be RNG and based off of how the team responds to what they encounter. So I love hexcrawl games. As a DM, I've been DMing since 1987. I grew up on hexcrawls in the BX system. I was a huge enthusiast of the Wilderness Survival Guide in the first edition AD&D. I absolutely love random hex generation stuff, and I'm pretty good at being able to improvise stuff after 30 years of doing it. So as a DM, I'm pretty confident that this is something I'll be able to successfully playtest, to be able to run a good ship while we do this, and to be able to gather meaningful playtest information during the testing, while being able to put on a really good game for the people that decide to playtest with us, that jump into and build out a character and join the roster. And the far end goal of this is, after we finish the playtesting for the martial power system itself, and can publish that to go along with the rest of the mana stuff that we have in this bundle, complete all 13 classes using the same unified color mana system to express all characters in D&D 5e. We can also then, from that, build out the Rubblebelt toolkit that, hey, if you want to use mana in a closed environment as a standalone campaign or like as a side hustle, like when your DM doesn't show up and you guys still want to throw, math rocks around, why not jump into the Rubblebelt and fuck around for a couple hours? Great, let's go take on some tiles. So you can just use some of the pre-generated characters or keep a side character for the Rubblebelt, and you can just dive in and start tearing up the terrain, finding magic items, building alliances, stealing artifacts, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's the whole spiel of it, and God, I've been spieling for a while. Whew. So, our mission today, since we've chosen to accept it, we have creatures to build out, and we have the enchantments are done. So we also have environmental terrain issues. So let's see, we have the monsters here. Like monsters aren't necessarily difficult to do. Let's look at the playtest design here. Rubblebelts. The goal here is to build a codified system that any DM can pick up and just randomly build their own hexcrawl campaign or square crawl campaign. Anyway, shut up. I use squares. I like squares because my Spelljammer book deals with upscaling the scale of battle from 5 feet to 50 feet to 500 feet and then into 1 mile, 10 mile, 10,000 miles, 100 million mile squares to explore space like you're exploring a dungeon, moving from square to square. I'm not a big hex enthusiast because the way that my brain thinks is that we can go from 5 feet up to 100 million miles inside of a square, and squares fit perfectly. Hexes leave gaps. I don't like those gaps. I like everything to seal up perfectly. And even though there's measurement issues, like people complain that squares have unnatural distances at angles, but at the same time, if you're using a hex, you can't go directly north and you can't go directly west. You have to do like this weird like little like diagonal step thing to move in a direction, and I think that's just as bad as having inaccurate measurements by moving at an angle. It's like if everything is at the same scale, it doesn't really matter if an angle square is at a different distance than a north-south like a true cross square movement. I think that the differences between the inaccuracies of a hex is equal in comparison to the inaccuracies of squares. So you can use this system with hexes just fine. I just prefer squares because I think they fit together more nicely. It's just aesthetically more pleasing to me. But you don't even have to use hexes. You can just use a yardstick. And like, hey, here's another terrain, or like another region of forest. Like you can draw it out without hexes. But the squares make it easy. Hexes make it easy. It's easy measurement. Anyway, so having said all that crap, let's get back actually into this. What we're doing here is we've selected a ton of different types of lands that are in the Magic the Gathering card system. Like Orzhov Palace is a white and black land. Is a white and black mana source. Boros Garrisons is a white and red land source. So it's a Boros Garrison. But in the Rubblebelt, these are all ruins. So when you're exploring ruins, it's like, what kind of terrain is this? Well, in white, it's generally plains or flatlands. And in a worldwide city, that's like courtyards, parking lots, gardens, promenades. There's all sorts of flat lands that can exist that represent plains in Ravnica as a worldwide city. Plus, actual plains. Like, if this area has been neglected for 5,000 years and they just never got around to it again, it could have its own entire culture and civilizations that don't do anything with the guilds at all. But they're just in this little recluse corner of the world where all the buildings have been completely covered over by nature, and the only way to find any structures from the Ravnica guilds is by digging under the ground until you get into the Underdark or the Undercity, where all the compressed buildings from previous generations and eons have been crushed down over time into a fake sort of, what would that be? It'd be like a shale, shale is like compressed rock and bone. So this would be like a shale type material that the Underdark Underdark is composed of, and there would be pockets and caverns that open up. It was like this in some ancient time was a Rakdos cafeteria. So it would feel like it would have like remnants of like a cafeteria space might look like, or like this used to be an Azorius Senate data center where they stored records of criminal activity from the population from 2,000 years ago. What's going on here? Like there might still be artifacts active that you could spend mana on to fire up the database and start finding out history of the different creatures that lived here while this area was still what's the word I'm looking for? Contemporary and active. So there could be infinite information in it. Like you could find an old Izzet lab that has like half-built constructs that you could just put some mana into and fire up. So now you have like these like 15-foot like robot sentries that are roaming around with you while you can keep them powered up. So there's all sorts of neat shit you can find inside there if you can dig below the surface. So these different land types have different types of hazards that are associated with it. Like an Azorius data center is a high security area where Azorius is still actively present. So they would have automated defenses and have things like identity checkpoints. Like they would have to check its data source against who you are, and you would have to try to deceive them by using mana, like maybe an alteration spell, or doing some sort of like mana generated deception check. Like I'm going to do a deception check and I'm going to spend a point of mana while I do it to try to spark a trigger in this machine to make it recognize who I am. And if I don't, it's going to attempt to automate defenses against an invader. So now I've activated all the traps in this facility. So if for instance, if this Azorius data center had an enchantment active with inside of it that we have to shut down, otherwise we're not going to be able to pull our caravan into that space. We're either going to have to skip this tile and go find someplace else and lose time, or we're going to have to go into that dungeon and find the source of the enchantment and shut it down with all the traps trying to kill us. So like maybe a suppression field is active. So any characters that use a sustained magical effect and have any kind of conditions end unless you have to pay, you spend your reaction each turn to keep them up. So if you're using some sort of a spell effect to keep monsters at bay or to keep your caravan safe, you would have to continuously be exerting effort to keep that ward active, otherwise it's going to crumble until you can take out the suppression field. So it might be worth it to you to delve into that dungeon to shut down that enchantment so that you can make the tiles safe for your team. So we're going through here and we're trying to look at different types of hazards that might be intuitive for the terrain that we're dealing with right now. So, and each of these land types occupy one of these squares. Like if this was the first tile that we went to, it could be an Azorius data center. It's like the first thing that you get to deal with. So congratulations, you found an Azorius data center. Here's all the bullshit you're going to have to deal with while you're in this tile. And while you're in your starting square, you'll have an opportunity to scout ahead, to get you can do a perception check or an investigation check to get a gist of what the next tile is. Like we can see that it's a white tile, but is there any indication of what kind of threats are there? And so you can do, we can do ability checks to give you a general sense of what may be in there to decide which of these tiles you want to take on. Just like in Path of Exile, when you modify your map, it might say like creatures like 30% lightning resistance. It's like, that's awesome. I don't use lightning damage. Carry on. I'll take on that map. That's awesome. That's the kind of stuff that we're working with. That's the idea that we're jiving with here. So we've worked through all of the white elevated and white level terrain. We're now working on blue tiles. So that took a while for me to talk through, didn't it? I got to get better with my intros. Let's undo all this shit because that was weird. There. Let's see. Skyline Cascade. That's actually a waterfall effect. So that would be let's see. Obscured mist obscures vision. unstable. No, Skyline Cascade. That's floating islands. So, rock. It could be toppling architecture. Things fall off floating islands. There you go. Miss obscure vision. Can't target further than 60 feet away. Disadvantage perception checks. Skyways are like towers and floating islands that are connected by different bridges. So a skyway could have a hazard like, and I'm just doing 2 hazards because if it has hazards, we have them set up. So I can blend together these 2 different hazard effects that we're coming up with to help embellish an enchantment hazard or creatures that are present. So let's see, what are some skyway stuff that we get to do? That's skyways are bridges and stuff. So it could be collapsing bridge. Falling damage requires climbing, flight to traverse. Let's see, what's another fun skyway sort of thing to do? It's in the clouds. Geez, like maybe bad weather. Would that be a thing? Like storm clouds, like lightning, potential lightning damage. That's a thing. I don't know. If anyone has any ideas out there, certainly be welcome to shout out. But let's see. Skyways are bridges, so the collapsing bridges makes for hazards that require climbing and flight. What's something cool? I don't want to delve into creature. Like I keep trying to bend into. Oh, this would be a good like the bound ghosts in the Orzhov Temple here. That's like they're guardians, but they're not the monsters that are just roaming. There we go. We can go with. There's monsters that are free roaming, and then I guess we could set up hazards as like specific types of creatures, like piercers, assassin vines, ropers, maybe something like that. I don't know if that's the right way to do it. Let's see, aristocratic community. This is a high up. This is an elevated community, so aristocratic community might have automated defenses, which is something I keep leaning into. That I'm concerned about the variety that offers. Could be instead of like an like a global enchantment, it could just be like defense wards. Require mana, arcane to disarm, or deal conditions. And what would be another fun thing to have for an aristocratic community that's been neglected? We're thinking blue. Elevated blue region. Thank you, Timely Timer. What could we potentially have here? let's see, defense wards and maybe like how would we want to do that? This is an elevated terrain. Boy, this stuff isn't easy to do, man. Aristocratic community. That means high rises, floating islands, skyways, high security. It's aristocratic, so it's expensive, high-end stuff. Unreliable gravity wells. Updrafts. Reverse gravity. There we go. Reverse. For instance. Hey, what's up? Oh, right on, man. Though I'm tempted to start converting various 5e adventure villains into perfect draw just to see what their decks was. That's cool, man. Good luck. Let's see. Fairy Conclave is cool. Academic Ruins are cool. Let's see. Academic Ruins. What might we see here? Academy. Learning. Knowledge. Library. What kind of hazards would I find in an Academy Ruins? Hall monitors. Maybe maybe if there's a lab. This is a very, does that feel like a lab? Yeah, lab experiments. Sentient lab experiments. Or, ooh, awakened oozes. Awakened oozes and experiments. Oh, there we go. Living spells. Living spells, of course. That's a monster type. So are hall monitors. But again, these aren't the random monsters that may have decided to populate the area. These are the things that just naturally occur there. Let's see. So, Fairy Conclave. Fairies are tricksters. Confusion effects. Confusion effects and Misdirection, Lost Curses. Lost. That feels okay. I think I'm just constraining myself a little bit too much. So floating islands. I mean that's super core. We've already been talking about various sorts, but these are just free floating islands. Let's go with crumbling rocks. And what else could floating rocks offer as a high winds. High winds, risk falling. I like this better, actually. Let's take that. Let's go with high winds, difficult terrain, wind wall. There we go. Yeah, things fall off. Now we got blue flatlands. So we have just islands, which is water with structures sticking out of them. So that would be, what would be an island hazard? False floors. False floors break away into murky water. What's another fun little island hazard issue that we might come up with? Ooh, no, let's go with this, high tides. Let's go with high tides equals high tides equals terrain rises and falls with water. And then let's see, another hazard. I'm just imagining like whether there's a current or it's totally, like there'd be a little bit of a current. I could see that, but having all this architecture jutting out of the water, creating little land bridges and little land masses and sinkholes and eddies and whirlpools, swimming. Oh boy, because you'd have to find a way to be able to bring your caravan safely through there if you chose this lowland island terrain. Yeah, high tides is unreliable paths. Yeah, well, I guess we can just go with no, I want to go with like unreliable paths, but that's kind of what the high tides already does. So we already have that going on. What's something else we could have? Ooh, submerged lairs. Big bad water bosses. That could be a fun idea. Canals. Canals are basically roads, water roads alongside solid ground roads. So canals could be broken pathing. What else we got? Broken paths would be like you can't get, like you'd have to swim or jump somehow across a canal, and like these canals could be like 50 feet across, so you have to find like a roundabout path to get to get your caravan through safely. That basically difficult or slows your terrain. There we go. Through the tile. Broken paths. What's another fun thing we could do with canals? Maybe like sewer beasts, like Otyugs, black puddings, shambling mounds. Those could be viable threats that exist in the terrain. Yeah, let's go with that. Sewer beasts. No. What's something that they would have to deal with while in canals? How about flotillas? That's kind of a neat idea. Like barges or like gondolas. That's a fun idea. Like whatever sentient creatures have been in the region in the past and set up a number of gondolas to use to traverse these areas. So you'd be able to traverse both the land as well as between lands through the water. That could be a fun little thing. Like that's more of a trick than a trap or a puzzle or a hazard, but it's neat. Let's see, a lot of climbing. Broken elevation. Lots of climbing. Distracting environment. Disadvantage on perception. Outdoors equals disadvantage plus concentration. That's a fun effect. I like that. Erupting geysers. Deal fire damage. And heated erupting pipe geysers. I like that. What else do we have in steam vents? Maybe some sort of corrosion, something. Corrosive oozes. Then we have Simic Ruins, which leans into green. Untended breeding pools. What else? Untended mutation pools. That's a fun idea. That can mutate creatures if they get into it. I like that. Let's see. What's another fun Simic sort of thing to do? Sickening Bogs. And let's see, Simic Ruins. What's another cool thing we can do with Simic Ruins? They do genetic experiments, hospital stuff. We already have the mutation pools for creating basically hybrid creatures, like convert yourself to a hybrid creature. That's nasty. What's another fun Simic thing to do? Maybe just Rogue Krasis. That could be okay. And then Sunken Blue. Did I have Waterfall up here already? God damn it. Leading down. Okay, so waterfalls that lead down, and then blue down is waterfalls is the base. So that would be I guess like a aquatic creature lair. And algaes and moss. That's good. Like while you're in the region, you're poisoned or sickened. That's cool. I mean, it sucks, but it's interesting. Sunken Lake, which is like basically a reservoir underwater. So that would be. Oh, what would that be? Dripping Oozes. Drippy Oozes. Drippy Oozes and like gelatinous cubes, black puddings, stuff like that. Crap, that's my timer. So, arf, we're trying to dig our way through this stuff. We're getting there. A Simic Cave-in. Oh, that's like a. Oof, we got a lot to go. I might just have to work on some of this off screen if we're ever going to get it done. These are all the lands that we still have to do. Shit. What's one more thing we can do for a sunken lake? Another type of hazard for a sunken lake. Drippy oozes. I feel like these things should be in the sunken lake. We can have drippy oozes on the waterfall. And deafening cascades. Disperception and concentration. Yeah, that'll work. It's not awesome, but it'll work. Okay, we're making our way through this. We still have a slew of these to go, but that's half the fun. Let's see if I can build out some of this on my own over the weekend. So we can start moving this forward. We have I want to start playtesting on the 13th. So as of at the end of this month, like in the next 10 days, I'm going to start putting out requests for people to participate, lockdown, which day of the week it is, and when we can start, get people onto the roster, start building teams, lock down these things. So if anyone has any ideas about the different types of hazards we might have in different terrains, you are certainly welcome to catch up with me on my Discord channel, which I have marked here under Discord community link is in the About page of my Patreon. So if you go to my Patreon, here's the About page. Here is the Discord link. This should be updated now. Go to. Yep. Oh, invite. Okay, I'm going to update this right now. So I'm going to step out. I'm going to update this, and then we'll be live for the Discord. So if any of this stuff is interesting to you, if you have any ideas yourself about different types of hazards we can add into these, I'm open to any suggestions. I'm going to do some research, different editions. Check out the old Dungeoneer's Survival Guide, the old Wilderness Survival Guide, and maybe some third-party content that have dealt with hazards to see if there's anything that lines up that I can potentially bundle with in the future. But that's it for now. I got to go. I got to finish out my day. I'll be out tonight. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning in approximately 20 hours from now. It's 2:30 here in Seattle. No, it's 3 o'clock. Oh, yeah, I got to bounce. See you guys later.